Richard Benevento. Everybody calls me Rick. I was that growing up. Born and raised here in Portland, Oregon. Mom and dad lived here and were both hardworking, middle class. I have a older sister that lives here in Portland, Barbara. Younger sister, Julie, that lives in West Palm Beach. I went to Sunset High School here locally. Was a gymnast growing up. Went on to a scholarship at University of Iowa, competed 3 years there. An injury took me out, which we'll get into it at another time here. And I went on to working with a company called TEKsystems for 27 years and just recently retired last year. I've never thought about writing a book or how this all came together, but when I was in school at University of Iowa, I was a communication major, and I became, after about 2 years of business, I switched over to that major, and of course in that last two and a half years, it was all about writing papers, and I started just enjoying it. I didn't find it difficult, I didn't find it challenging, I kind of found it to be a lot of fun, and so that's where I kind of felt like I had a knack of writing, but I really didn't know that until I started this project here. You know, when I first put this all together, it wasn't about the book. I was actually just journaling while my kids at the time were around 10 or 11 years old, doing some tutoring. And during the time that they're in the library, I just caught myself just writing some thoughts down of what this journey to Blue Lake, which is where I did my first triathlon. And I just started writing my story. And I just started writing it down, and well, typing my story down. And got to about 30 pages, and at the time, my girlfriend, Erin, was like, I've got a friend in the publishing business. Let's just see where this goes. And so what I did was, I submitted the 30 pages, and she came back with some just incredible feedback, like, I want more. I want more, I want to hear more, I want to see more about what this whole journey was like for you, and so I did. So every day that they did tutoring, or every time we went down to the library, I brought my laptop and I just kept telling my story, and it evolved into, which is the final product of Journey to Blue Lake. At 56, I felt like I've gone through my share of adversity and had to persevere through some hard times. But you know, some good and bad life markers can be both. And you know, I think one of the top life markers for me was, you know, signing a scholarship to the University of Iowa. And so that was a big life marker for me. While at Iowa, I had a lot of injuries. Every year I had a shoulder injury where I needed surgery. So learning how to do that without your parents in your backyard, you kind of grow up pretty fast having surgery and waking up in the hospital and not having your mom and dad there. Kind of teaches you to grow up pretty quickly. And so I did that for 3 years off and on, compete, surgery, compete, surgery, compete, surgery, until my junior year. A surgery literally took me out of the sport. I had a dead bone in my wrist, and I went from Rick the gymnast to Rick the student, and that was just devastating. I get goosebumps even telling the story, because my doctor came in and said, you're not gonna be a gymnast anymore. And I was like, oh, okay, does that mean I go back to Portland? Do I lose my scholarship? I had no idea, I was scared. And so, no, I didn't lose my scholarship. The medical department picked it up, so I was able to stay on as the first undergraduate assistant coach. So I was able to stay with the sport, and you know, got my degree and everything. And then, you know, I'll skip to some other real life markers. You know, my dad passing. You know, he was diagnosed and passed away in 2 weeks due to leukemia, and so that was hard to deal with. And then obviously a divorce was not a good one. It was kind of, you know, just was messy, and it was, you know, hard on the kids and on me. And but I found, you know, a second love in my life, and I'd known Erin for many years. We used to do gymnastics together, and our lives kind of came back together. And we got married in 2014, and unfortunately she got pancreatic cancer and passed away in 2019. And that put me in a whole nother world. yeah, seeing the person you love literally die in the house that we lived in, and seeing her just deteriorate was just, it was heartbreaking. The hospital runs, the radiation, the chemo, and it was hard. It took me, several years after that to even get back into the, dating scene. And fortunately, I did meet another nice, wonderful lady, Marcy. We dated for about a year, and she passed away of cancer. And so it was in 3 years I lost 2 women that I loved, and I was like, what's going on with my life here? Why is this happening to me? And my company was so supportive. They were like, Rick, do you need some time away? And I said to myself, you know what? Maybe I didn't grieve enough or long enough for Aaron. Maybe I didn't grieve it or long enough for Marcy. But my company being so supportive of everything I've done in my life, they're like, take some time. And so I threw out 5 weeks, and they awarded me that 5 weeks, and I went over to Europe and spent a week in Ireland and 2 weeks in Italy. Actually, 4 weeks in Italy, I take that back, 4 weeks in Italy. Came back, did a lot of journaling while I was over there, and realized that life is short. Life is precious. I love what I did, and been doing at work, helping people find jobs, helping my customers get through their IT projects, but it wasn't that important to me anymore, and I knew that. And so I gave a very long 6-month notice and walked away from a great company that treated me so well, and went into retirement, which was another life marker. So I'm still trying to figure that part of my life out, but it's been amazing journey, and I look forward toward the next chapter of this journey as well. I'd always watch on ABC Sports, the Kona Championships, these triathletes, these amazing athletes, both men and women, just pushing their bodies into things that that I could never see myself do. And as I was a runner, after I got done with gymnastics, I was always staying in shape. I was doing a lot of running. I had, lifted weights, and I went to watch one of my coworkers do his first triathlon. It was here in Portland. Got up early, and as I was watching this, I was amazed on the ages. I saw a kid 10 years old up to, 70. I saw, overweight people. I saw very skinny people. I saw short. I saw tall. I saw everything. And I'm sitting there drinking my coffee and going, wow, these people are putting themselves out there. They're doing it, and they're completing it. I've always wanted to try one, and I did. Time over time, I went from the sprint level to the Olympic level to what they call a 70.3, which is a half Ironman. Did 4 of those. And Aaron was right there with me the whole time. During those I'd say triathlons, there was my last 70.3, and I finally told her that I want to do a full Ironman. And she's like, do it. I know you can do it, just sign up and do it. And when I did it, I was also scared too because of that financial investment. I knew the time would take to go from a half Ironman to a full Ironman. Because I'd been talking to a lot of folks that had done like 5, 6, 7, 8 of these things, and it's part of your life. You become, for 6 months, training just for that event. Well, during that whole time, as I'm starting to kind of get my feet wet again as far as like starting to ramp up, Erin's not feeling good, and she is now diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. I was devastated. It just hit us like, what is going on? She was young, healthy. It made no sense. And today it still makes no sense, okay? But I told her, I'm like, I can't, I'm done. I'm just gonna get a refund and I'm not gonna do this Ironman. I can't do this and help you and go through all the doctor's appointments, support you and all this kind of stuff. And she looked at me, she goes, no, you're not quitting. You're not stopping. This has been your dream. You've been working towards this for the last 4 half Ironmans that you did. You've been talking about this, for a long time. You're not quitting. And I'm like, wow. Okay, now the pressure's on. Now she's telling me I'm not gonna quit. I financially got into this thing. I have to go get equipment. I got to go buy all this stuff. I mean, it was a complete commitment. But what if I can't finish? What if I get hurt? What if all these thoughts came into my head? I'm like, I can't control all of it, but what if? What if I get to the race and I can't finish? All these things for nothing. So that pressure was on me. And so I had thoughts, I had doubts. I was like, what am I doing? But she kept on saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. And so, you know, that motivated me more than anything, is knowing that I had support at home, because every triathlete that I ever talked with said, if you don't have that support at home, you're gonna get divorced. Your marriage is gonna fall apart. Your boyfriend, your girlfriend, whatever it is, it's gonna fall apart, because you're gone so long training that if you don't have that person either doing it with you, which Erin did until she got really sick, yeah, you're out there by yourself. And so, and that was the motivation that actually got me through the Ironman, with so many troubling times during that day. The heat, the exhaustion, the cramping, the almost being swept from the course, 16 hours of just pure pain, pretty much. I wasn't gonna quit. There was no way. There is no way that I'm quitting. With the amount of pain she was going through, that I was seeing her go through, a little cramp in my calves and my quads, and yeah, I'm dehydrated, and you know, barely can, you know, had to get an IV afterwards to just put fluids back in my body, was nothing compared to what I saw her have to fight through every single day, and wondering what she was thinking about every single day that she was fighting for her life. So huge motivation. I still get emotional talking about it, because she was the reason why I was able to finish, and she was at the finish line. She was at the finish line 3 days after her chemo treatment, not feeling great. She would kind of pop her head in and out of the race. I was out there for 16 hours, for God's sakes. It's like, you know, it's not that you're gonna be sitting there watching me, you know, or even could see me. But it was amazing that she was at the finish line. She saw me come through to the end. I was able to give her a big hug, and you know, that next day, and when she has a good day, meaning no pain, no chemo effects, it was an amazing day. And so I get goosebumps, because what we would end up doing is, like, we'd go out and have a few beers. And that day we found this great little pub. I had just enough energy to walk to this pub and eat as much as I possibly could. And we sat there watching these mountain bikers come down Blackcomb in Whistler there for, I don't know, 8 hours, 10 hours. We didn't move, and we laughed and we cried and we laughed, and we were like talking about everything. And it was probably it was such a great moment after my biggest achievement in athletics, you know, physically and mentally, and having that shared with a woman that is fighting her biggest challenge. And we literally were both feeling so, I guess, blessed and fortunate that we found each other, that I was able to find her, that we were just having a great day. And we sat there for 8 hours, 10 hours, I think, and we didn't move. And we had probably lunch and dinner at the same place. And it was just a perfect moment to end of probably, if not the hardest day of my life. Well, I got to go back to the swimming. I was a runner. I'd say that was my strength. Biking was just a matter of just learning how to really, you know, learn how to put your arms in these new bars and stuff, you know, the aerodynamic part of it. And just, you know, that it was just more time in the saddle about the biking. But the swimming was, you know, it was amazing. The first day I went into the pool, I had my, you know, my resort shorts on, meaning, you know, the big baggy, you know, Billabong ones, and, you know, like swimming in these, you know, and I didn't have earplugs, and, you know, I didn't have a cap. I just looked like I was going to a resort going swimming, and, you know, I'd go 50 yards, if that, and rest, and just, you know, just like I am out of breath. I was literally out of breath. And I was training through all that. In the pool, I would have panic attacks, because I was already thinking, if I'm tired in the pool, I was putting my mind back into that open water lake or river. And I had a few panic attacks in the pool where I had to get out of the pool, sit on the edge, take my goggles off, and just calm my breathing down because I was just hyperventilating. And I'm like, great, this is what's gonna happen when I'm, out in the middle of a lake. I'm gonna have a panic attack, which I did, but I was I had a wetsuit on and buoyant, but this was the mind process and what I had to fight through. This is what was going on in my mind every time I went in the pool. And I never felt comfortable swimming until later in my career of doing these triathlons, when I was doing, these half Ironmans where I was in the water for an hour and a half, where I was like, got out of the water and go, that was never easy because I was a horrible swimmer. I looked horrible in the water. You're supposed to be like this. I was I was terrible. I had bad shoulders from gymnastics. But I knew I could get through it because it was all about the breathing. And when you start breathing hard, you start panicking and you're turning your head and you're not catching that breath, and all of a sudden you're out of breath. That's where people start panicking. That's what I did. So practice. I had swimming coaches to overcome that. Bridget was my coach. She gave me drills to work on. It wasn't like you just jump in there and just start swimming. There was different breathing drills. There's kicking drills. There's buoys that you put, between your legs. There's buoys that you grab onto. There's just all these different drills to help you learn how to, overcome just the idea of swimming. So the better technique, the less effort you're making, the less effort, the easier the breathing, the more relaxed. So it was a whole combination. And I would just go like, boom, I'm just gonna start swimming. No, it's like you gotta walk before you run, before, anything. So that was one of the things that I learned, and I had to take a step back, and that's when I went through all my coaching, and just win every day. Never switched, never skipped out of swimming. I would skip a run, I'd skip a bike, but swimming, I just didn't have the luxury to be able to do that, and so that's kind of how I overcame that. Yes, so 1996, September is when I got hired. When I went in for my interview, I walked through the hallways and I saw what we called the recruiting pit in the offices and the people that were all just running around with their hair on fire. And I was like, wow. Like, I don't know what it was. It wasn't so much the industry. I didn't know anything about IT, information technology. I didn't know anything about recruiting. I really didn't even know what the job entailed. Even when I was back in Baltimore training, I'm like, I come back after 2 weeks, I go, I really don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing. I just love the culture. I believe in the people that are leaders, the owner of the company, Stephen Bisciotti, and Jim Davis, and my directors, and we were all just trying to make a living, make some money, and we were in sales, and we were ethical, we were honest, we were trying to be better than our competition. Nothing that any business book that you pick up, Business 101 about sales and competitiveness, it's all there. I found a culture better than at the time than I ever saw before in my life. I mean, the cliche of that, did we work hard? Yes, we worked our tails off. I know for me, I was a little older than everybody. I started the company in my early, late 20s, early 30s. So I had already got off the road and had real life experience. I had lived in Germany. I had already traveled to China, all with the Bud Light Daredevils. I had life experiences traveling with the University of Iowa. Like, I had already experienced all that and coached in all this. And now I'm surrounded by a bunch of younger folks that I was working for. And I learned so much from these people. So my 1975 Westie. So my first one was I don't name my cars, but they were named for me from some friends. Said one day I bought a 1975 Westfalia. It was back in 1996. I had just got done touring with the Daredevils. I was gonna try to go find my real job, so I was in between. I was like, I kind of want to be a hippie a little bit, so I bought this 75 Westie. And somewhere down the line, somebody said, hey, let's get into Benny. Because Benevento, Benny, I don't know why they came up with Benny. So anyways, it just stuck. So my first Benny, drove it around, got a paint job, just had fun camping. I don't know, just free will. Just something about jumping into a hippie van. You kind of get that vibe of just slow down. You're not going fast in the thing. You might be playing some Grateful Dead, the Rolling Stones, I don't know, just kind of just chill music, Jimmy Buffett, whatever I feel like doing that day. Sold the bus during my divorce. Thought, maybe someday I'll get another one. Well, in 2022, a good friend of mine, Mark, found one here in Portland. Same year, same orange color. I went down there to test drive it in probably the coldest part of winter. It was 15 degrees. Those things don't have heat. I had my checkbook with me. Long story short, I walked away with Benny 2. And so today I drive it. I tell people I don't drive across country. I don't drive it, long distances. It doesn't have air conditioning. It's a 1975, but I had the interior redone. Had a paint job on it as well. Got a new camper for it, so all the zippers work. It's just kind of my pride and joy. And one of the biggest things is it's sitting in a garage finally. All the other years I had Benny, it was tarped outside. The weather got to it here in Oregon. It rains a little bit here. I've been, if you don't know that. And so now it's in a nice warm garage. It stays covered. I only drive it when it's, not too rainy. I try not to take it out, but I just like getting behind it. I just feel people wave, people kind of, hey, can I take a picture of it? Can I look inside? Oh my gosh, it kind of makes you feel good. It's a classic, and people really love it. Kids are always waving. I'm always honking my horn and waving, and I don't know, maybe it's that, just that identity. We talked about it earlier in this conversation, is that, I lost a lot of different identities, or I've had a lot of identities. I was a gymnast, I was a Bud Light Daredevil. I was an account manager at TEKsystems. And then I'm like, what's Rick now? Well, my identity is I'm retired. What's my next one? Well, maybe, hopefully this gets published, So I think we go through lives of trying to reinvent ourselves, and I think I'm doing a pretty good job of that. And now it's like, it's Rick and Benny 2. What are you doing? And she's got her own website, Instagram, page and so forth. And people are always like, okay, where's Benny 2 going today, And so it's fun. It's just a hobby. I wish I knew more about how to fix it. I've got great mechanics and people that help me with it when it does break down, because it does. It's old, but I don't know. I've just enjoyed it. It makes me just feel comfortable, relaxed, balanced, and just I get to put the world aside for a little bit and drive around and enjoy my time with just some music. And so just going for a cruise and going camping. It's fun. So that's part of my, my Benny story, Benny 2 story, so to speak. So yeah, if you're fighting through anything in life right now, pick up my book. It's a journey that I think we've all been on. And if it just gives you a little bit of motivation to whether want to run a 3K or maybe do an Ironman, or maybe pick up a hobby, whatever fear you've need to get through it, and it feels so much better on the back end. So enjoy the book, enjoy the journey. Life is short, and have fun.